I'm Safi.
And I'm Mystic.
And this is Lore Together. This is the podcast where a husband and wife team go over all of the stories, world building, characters, and everything else that makes up the worlds that we play video games in, because that's what we like to do together. We lore together.
Yep. And this is episode 26. We have made it through a whole year.
Yeah, so...
Since we do it every other week.
Yes, exactly. So... our next episode will be our 1-year anniversary. So thank you for everybody who has survived 2020 with us.
We started at the wrong year.
Either the wrong year or the right year. It depends on how you look at it.
That's
because
fair.
I do want to say that this podcast has been great in connecting with all the other people we did through this podcast. It has been a nice little glimmering star above the dumpster fire that was 2020. I think that's the best way for me to say it. To all of you listening out there, thank you for listening. If you want to connect with us, not only do we have our Twitter at Lore Together, but we're also available on Instagram, Lore Together. And you can see all of the great small shops we counted down to before Christmas. You can email us directly, loretogether@gmail.com. If you have any questions or suggestions, we love hearing from our fans.
And if you'd like to support us and you like this episode, this series, and you're aware by now that we have a wee infant in our midst, you may hear him in the background. Apologies if you do. But if you'd like to support us, you can do so over on Patreon at patreon.com/loretogether, where you can have a per episode pledge to get early access to our episodes as well as our mini episodes, because we're going to be changing it so that live streams are going to be public eventually.
Yeah, we haven't edited it just as of the recording, but we are definitely changing it so that mini episodes are now going to be exclusive to patrons only, and live streams will not be exclusive to patrons as of 2021. That will be a way for us to, see who else is out there and who'd be interested.
And we'll be doing more mini episodes on more diverse topics as we go.
Yeah, as I've said, I am doing a mini episode on Keith David because I just felt inspired to. Why not? He's contributed some cool stuff to video game landscape.
All right, let's get into episode 26.
Episode 26. Now, once again, I don't know what the heck Mystic's doing.
Let's see if you can guess this one.
Okay.
It is a series that deals with cybernetic augmentation.
Are we doing cyberpunk?
It is in the near future with giant multinational corporations and a lot of transhumanism themes.
Deus Ex Machina.
It's not Deus Ex Machina, but it is Deus Ex.
Deus Ex. Oh, Deus Ex. Okay, so I was almost there.
I'm not going to do cyberpunk because I haven't had a chance to play it yet.
Right, but you did have a friend gift it to you.
I did have a friend gift it to me, and we will eventually get to the Mike Pondsmith R. Talsorian Games universe popularized by CD Projekt Red's game, and hopefully by then the bug should be ironed out as well.
Yeah,
Current events, right?
That's another thing I think I want to talk to you, Mr. about doing on the Patreon is essentially when certain news items come up in video games, I think we could do a little mini episode about our opinion on it. So look for that in the future as well.
I'll let you edit those.
Yeah, it's only going to be 15 minutes, so I'm happy to do that.
First game of Deus Ex came out in 2000. The game director is Warren Spector, who is a known name, notable for Wing Commander, System Shock, and some of the Ultima games. A franchise that is so large I'm kind of afraid to tackle it, but it is one that I intend to tackle at some point.
Okay, and then System Shock, which is considered the spiritual predecessor to BioShock, correct?
I would say BioShock is the spiritual successor.
Oh, I mean, did I say...
The spiritual predecessor is a weird way of putting it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wrote poems for Christmas, and so my brain does words in the weird ways right now. My apologies.
This is going to be a shorter episode, possibly. It's a very busy week for me.
Yeah, I know.
I had projects that were due, so usually I'd pass the ball to Safi, but I didn't think of it this time.
Well, also, I'm sorry, but for me, around Christmas time, because I take it so seriously, I don't have free time.
Right.
Doing Christmas is a second job. There was a great Twitter thread where someone who is Muslim and had to quarantine, so he was celebrating Christmas with his flatmates.
Oh, yeah, I saw about that.
Yeah, and he was like, you guys make it a full-time job. Christmas is a full-time job. And he's right. It's what you do. So that's the problem with December.
So we're going to cover kind of the backstory of one aspect of Deus Ex, which is the Augmentation.
Okay.
And then we're going to do a little bit of the world building, and we're going to save the rest for another episode when I can dig into a game itself in more detail.
But the augmentation is a big part of what makes Deus Ex the universe it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the backstory of the universe follows closely with our universe up until the late 20th century.
Okay.
And we're going to pick up in 1973.
Okay.
With the birth of Hugh Darrow, son of Sir Martin Darrow. No idea when he was knighted.
Okay.
And he has a son, Hugh Darrow. Hugh attends very prestigious schools. The Skatecliff School, which is in a small town of Egham. The name of the school was changed in 1986 to the Bishopgate School. These are real places.
So Egham is in England, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
And the Stowe School in Stowe, or I think it was this. Both are in the UK, as you just said.
How do you spell Stowe?
Stowe.
Okay, that sounds right to me, I guess.
Yeah. There, he excelled at sports, head of the football. Obviously, this is going to be soccer to us American listeners.
Oh, yeah. Football.
Well, they wouldn't call it football in England.
Well, okay. We live with neighbors who say football, so I like to say football for our own reasons. But yeah, it's soccer for Americans.
So, but he excelled. He was basically head of the football, rugby union, and cricket sports teams during his years.
That is the most English set of jock sports I have ever. So, football, like
soccer football.
Then you have
the one where you actually use your feet.
Yeah. Rather than American football, which really should be called hand egg.
Yeah.
I always loved that joke. That you've got cricket, and then you have rugby, and the only thing that's just so UK.
Like
right?
rugby is kind of like a rougher sport.
Yes, actually,
it's rougher than American football.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in certain ways, it's funny because there's less head injury because you're not protected, so you're not trying to hurt each other.
I remember way back when I was watching rugby one time, and it's rare. Mm-hmm. My friend had just gotten a new cable package or something, and they had like a week or 2 weeks of Setanta Sports, which had like this big rugby like world competition on it. And there was this guy who I just saw walking off the pitch or field or whatever they call it, with his ear just off, just hanging there.
Ears getting messed up is a big rugby thing because of the way that they set up their plays.
So, but he excels at sports, finds school boring, and opts not to go to college. Does not go to college.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. It's not for everybody.
But still at this point has a personal interest in robotics. He designs his first crude robot at 10, does a makeshift robotics lab at 16, and participates in Robot Wars in 1984.
Robot Wars? So is that a game show kind of thing?
Yes. In fact, I think that was a real one.
Oh, like the one they had at Comedy Central for a while? Well,
they also had one on Discovery. There was a big thing for a little bit there.
Yeah, which it is kind of fun seeing these metal blocks hit each other. It's kind of fun.
Despite losing the competition, it inspired Hugh to seek out influential biomechanic research companies in the U.S. to allow him to research mechanical augmentation.
So we're now talking about cybernetic enhancements.
I mean, this type of stuff some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is real. Like
quote unquote real. Okay.
You can do some of the stuff now. A cochlear implant is a cybernetic enhancement.
Well, there are people who would say you're a cyborg if you wear glasses on your face. So it's all about your relative definition of what's cybernetic.
That's fair. In this case, we're going to talk about biotechnological augmentation in terms of some sort of interface.
Okay.
Some sort of interface between, like a prosthesis, interfaces with sensors on your arm so you can move. Here we're going to be eventually getting into actually grafting onto nerves or stuff like that.
Okay.
An ill-fated ski trip in 1985 left Darrow's anterior cruciate ligament, or ACL, ruined.
Definitely not going to be playing soccer anytime soon.
No. Yeah. And the failed attempts at an allograft surgery left him debilitated. Allograft is where I did a lot of, like, what's this medical term? I'm like, what the heck's an allograft? An allograft is where they take a donor, usually from a cadaver, and then graft
Yeah.
it into you.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he can move the leg, but he's not going to be playing sports anytime soon.
Right.
So for Hugh, the moment in which his visionary mind kind of drew upon this connection between robotics, prosthetics, and improving human capabilities, and kind of to, quote, realize the transhumanist potential of mechanical augmentation.
Now, I get concerned when people say transhumanism because unfortunately the term has now been kind of commandeered by a lot of these rich elite types who are trying to say that there are certain humans who are supposed to be. It's essentially another form of classism that or racism or whatever ism it is that we're doing.
Deus Ex does touch on those.
Yeah.
As we go.
I just want to acknowledge the fact that unfortunately
transhumanism I don't think is as much of a danger as posthumanism.
That's fair. I just want to acknowledge the fact that
is another thing. We're not going to cover it this episode, but that is the thing in this universe is there are people who have augmented themselves to the point that they are essentially cyborgs then.
Yeah, they're no longer considered human.
Right.
I just want to acknowledge the fact that transhumanism has been commandeered in a way where it's problematic in our current world, in current events right now, but that's not to say that that's exactly what's going on in the game.
I mean, transhumanism is a malleable term that can apply to many different aspects.
Exactly. And I think that's part of the problem is when you have it's unfortunately too vague.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a concept that it can apply to so many different things that it almost loses meaning.
Right. Like I've heard it used also in reference to transhumanism is the idea that you apply humanistic ideals to other living beings that are not human but exude certain things. Like you could apply it to if you think elephants are intelligent enough to have rights, that's transhumanism to some people. I don't think that's a common term, but again, it's just to say it's so all over the place.
That's someone co-opting a term. I believe transhumanism is supposed to be... I'm going to do the stupid thing and look up the actual definition. Transhumanism is a philosophical movement that advocates for the transformation of the human condition by developing and making widely available sophisticated technologies able to greatly modify or enhance human intellect and physiology. That is what we're going with here.
Okay. Sorry. Disregard the elephants. Just disregard any mention of the elephants. I now feel, somebody co-opted the term.
So, Hugh returned to England in 1986, and at the age of 23, he purchased a struggling prosthetics research and manufacturing firm.
Now, did he come from money, or did
yes.
he? Okay.
His father is Sir.
Right.
Like,
right, but that
and we have not established it. At this point already, his father has established and created Picus Group, which is the largest multimedia conglomerate.
Okay, so this guy, he has money to burn for anything that...
Yeah. I mean, the schools I mentioned they're prestigious schools. He came from money.
I just wanted to make sure that I understood it.
That's
right.
Fine. So he merges this prosthetics lab with a robotics company under a new name called Darrow Industries. Fair enough.
Of course, yeah.
And completely changes the focus of both these firms towards mechanical augmentation. His groundbreaking work with robotics, biotechnology, and human enhancements changes the face of the industry over the years. Foreshadowing a little bit here, his work would eventually win him the Nobel Prize in the late 2010s.
Nice. Very nice.
So, interesting side note, despite being the father of mechanical augmentation, Hugh Darrow does not have any augments himself. We'll get to that.
That's very interesting. That kind of reminds me of, like, in a lot of those tech-related cities where there's this booming population of essentially a tech upper class. They send their kids to these private schools that are low tech, that only use notebooks and physical books and stuff. It's like, I work in it so much, I don't want my life to be a part of it.
I'll jump ahead and explain. Actually, he can get a prosthetic.
Yeah,
that's fine. He has a prosthetic to support his knee or something. That's fine. He cannot get these augments that he pioneers because he is part of the rare minority of people who are genetically incompatible with mechanical augmentation. So it's not like it's not a choice of his. In fact, he really resents this. Like, he feels like he's been deprived of.
Yeah, because you're so young, you've already messed up your leg, and that's already a huge loss. to somebody as
Well, he doesn't know
athletic
this
as
yet.
him. Oh, he doesn't know. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
All right.
But, we're foreshadowing a little bit here.
Okay.
However, even people who can get augments can reject them.
So it's like an organ almost.
Yeah, this is actually caused by a buildup of glial cells at the augment site. Basically, the body's rejecting it like an organ.
Exactly. This is a foreign body. Get the hell off of me.
Let's travel back to the 1970s again for a moment.
Again, I mean, really?
In 1976, Versatile Life Solutions is started, which works in pharmaceuticals, biomechanics, and genetic research. In the 90s, when they are known as VersaLife Corporation, one of their subsidiaries, White Helix Labs, started a program testing genetic therapy on newborn children.
Oh dear. There are so many ethical calamities going on in my head right now. And also, why is it every fictional DNA company has to have Helix in the name?
What's the one I created when we were playing our tabletop, Lacuna Helix?
Yes.
And everyone's like, "Oh, you listened to Lacuna Coil recently, didn't you?" I'm like, "Yes."
I literally, the one in my science fiction setting is literally just named after the people who found it.
Johnson and Johnson.
No, Yamaguchi, so the Y looks like a double helix. That's the only thing.
To be fair, it's an easily recognizable symbol.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of knows it, and it's the helical shape of DNA is known to the layperson.
Yeah.
But the science of it is still kind of murky to the layperson. So it's kind
Right.
of it's kind of like back when in the atomic age everything would have the atomic A or the symbol or it'd be atomic something.
Yeah,
or,
the way that...
Or before we knew about how bad radiation was, everything was the radiation blah, radiation spa, radiation whatever, radiation king,
Right,
yeah.
exactly.
So.
That makes sense. Still, I just need to call that out.
Only one child survived this program.
Oh,
we don't know his
gosh.
parents, and the results of the testing were likely unintentional. We'll touch on that later.
Well, why am I getting serious V from Vendetta vibes right now?
The lab burned down shortly after. Some researchers there had a guilty conscience with what they had done and burned it down.
Again, V for Vendetta vibes right now. So much V for Vendetta vibes.
A nurse rescued the child and eventually found him some adoptive parents. We'll catch up with that child in a few decades.
If it's Darrow, I'm very upset.
No.
Okay. Well, no, it couldn't be Darrow because you were talking about something that happened in the 90s,
Yeah.
even though the company was founded in the 70s. Okay, moving on.
In 2002, Darrow Industries pioneered the polyethylene dioxythiophene, or PDOT cluster array to create a biocompatible matrix device known as the biochip.
Okay, so a biochip. So I'm assuming it's something that has to interface with the nervous system.
Yep. Augmentation is a thing in real life. We put electrodes in or on the brain or limbs to stop tremors, feel information to different nerve clusters, all that stuff. We talked about already when it comes to a prosthesis. Your arm can be controlled by twitches in the upper arm, by nerve
Right.
impulses in that way.
Yeah. It's crazy what the nerve system can do even after so much damage. And they're just now finally on the precipice of essentially giving people functionality thanks to reconnecting their nervous system to their prosthesis.
Problem is, so if you're working in the brain, say you're putting a electrode in the brain to stop tremors from Parkinson's.
Okay, yeah.
The brain is a jelly.
Yes.
If that person gets jostled, that implant, that electrode is still a rigid metal piece that gets jostled with the brain, but you have other things on it that are moving.
Oh, no.
So this could be a problem. You need something that's flexible. This is what they're actually talking about here.
Okay.
The difference is that it's not a metallic interface point. It is a organic interface point.
Okay.
In fact, they will grow nerves to interface with your nerves with this thing. Just a side note, and this is why I love sci-fi, the idea of using PDOT clusters for biomechanics is real science.
So they're actually experimenting with this right now as we speak, I assume?
I found an article in The Independent. I looked this up. I found an article in The Independent just from this year talking about how it could be used. And the earliest research I found was actually, with a quick Google search, I didn't go that far,
Okay.
is from 2008. Before the game that this mechanical augmentation featured in. All the games that came before that was nano augmentation, which is a wholly different type of technology.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that's just about the smallest...
Nanites. Yeah.
The smallest machine possible. Yeah.
So the fact that they were like, that sounds cool, let's put that in our game about augmentation.
Right. And it happened to... It's funny how sometimes you predict the future and it's somewhat on the money.
So this biochip revolutionizes everything. Millions get augments to overcome disabilities or to better themselves in some way.
Okay.
But there's still a problem. The body still rejects them.
Gross.
To such a point that there's a disorder called Darrow deficiency syndrome, named after Hugh Darrow.
Because that's what you want to have something named after you for.
The syndrome is caused by a buildup of glial tissue around the neuroprosthetic junction, the interface between the augmentation and the user's flesh.
Okay.
Symptoms of DDS vary in severity, but include dizziness, migraines, loss of control over installed augments, painful seizures, and even death.
Is there any explanation as to how the death happens? Because the rest of it makes sense to me, but then you say death and you're like, what? Did it just...
Depends what the augment is.
Oh,
obviously.
okay. Okay.
If you have a pacemaker that decides it wants to nope out of you, then...
The idea of a pacemaker noping out of somebody's chest. And of course, in my brain, it's like this cheery little, like, it's time for me to go off an adventure. Whee! And it's got a smile on its face.
I must go. My planet needs me.
Meanwhile, this poor man in his 60s is keeling over at this very second.
There is no permanent cure for DDS. Patients must administer the anti-rejection drug neuroposine weekly to counteract the buildup of glial tissue.
Oh, man. Which means they have essentially an autoimmune disorder when you think about it, because they have to.
Mm-hmm. Well, people who have transplants in the real life have to take anti-rejection drugs.
Right, exactly. Which usually means
that
they're
pretty rough.
They're fighting their own immune system in order to live. It's nobody wants to live like that.
By the 2020s, many biotechnology companies existed all over the world and were helping to advance mechanical augmentations, making them fairly commonplace. Obviously, still very controversial. Mm-hmm. You know, this is obviously a point where there's going to be a lot of friction in society.
Well, there's still a lot of people who think that there's something sacred about when you die, you can't donate your organs because if you separate your body, you won't go to heaven, right?
Right.
So it doesn't surprise me that people are going to vilify a technology like this.
Right. One such company, Seraph Industries, which was founded in 2007 and had quickly grown to become one of the major biotech companies by 2027, was on the verge of a breakthrough. Despite it being over 20 years since the first biochip had been developed, nobody had yet figured out how to prevent the glial tissue buildup that ultimately led to rejection if neuroposine was not taken. This all changed when Seraph Industries head researcher Megan Reed created the X1 biochip prototype with her team.
Okay.
Unlike previous biochips, the X1's biochip P-dot cluster incorporated a mutagenic chemical composition that was isolated from the DNA strands of, quote, patient X.
Is this where this child that we didn't know what happened to comes back?
Yes, but I don't know if anybody knows that yet.
Oh.
We'll get to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm a writer. I'm thinking, I'm like, how do I connect
It is
this
pretty
back?
obvious. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
After 6 weeks of testing against a regular biochip, the team discovered that not only did the X1 biochip have no noticeable glial tissue buildup, but it also appeared to strengthen its neural connections, meaning neuroposine would no longer be necessary at all.
That's awesome.
However, mechanical augmentation, as we stated, is still a controversial subject in society, with people evenly split on pushing for or against them. Due to this, Reed and her team are scheduled to present and defend their research on the X1 biochip in Washington, D.C. in 2027.
Okay.
Side note, a little bit political. After watching Congress learn about Facebook and Twitter, I cannot imagine them hearing about biotechnology and understanding it.
Wait.
I don't care which side you're on.
Okay. I don't care what side you're on. There is literally a man who literally thought that a woman could get a picture of her womb if she swallowed a camera and then let it pass through her. And if you know anatomy,
no,
you know that that's not how that works. And I just remember being horrified when I found that out. Now, I'm not even going to state what they were talking about, but it's that's just not how anatomy works.
But
women can't swallow cameras and have them suddenly, here's a picture of your uterus.
Right.
Hey.
Can you imagine Congress, though, trying to get through the ethics of biotechnology?
Okay, as a United States citizen, you know they wouldn't be talking about the ethics. Like
Right.
there would be maybe 2 or 3 congressmen who'd be even touching upon ethics, and then everybody else would just be concerned more about their constituency's ability to make money off of it, or their donors' ability to make money off of it. And I hate to be that jaded, but that's just where we are in the United States right now, and it's kind of depressing.
Oh, you want depressing United States? We'll get there.
No.
If successful at this congressional hearing, I guess, they could pave the way for everyone to be safely augmented with no drawbacks. Unfortunately, the night before they were due in Washington, D.C., Serif Industries headquarters is attacked and Reed and her team killed. The head of security, Adam Jensen, tried to intervene but was severely wounded, almost dying from his sustained injuries.
Wow.
Working for a biomed company, though, Adam was augmented to an incredible degree.
Is he the $1 million man?
And was found to have no rejection of the implants at all. In fact, he's the only person to have no rejection.
Wow.
Likely due to the genetic tampering he had unknowingly foisted upon him as a newborn.
Oh.
So here's the thing, and this isn't in my notes. This is where I get annoyed by this.
Okay.
You have Adam,
Yeah.
who is augmented to an insane degree and finds out that he has no rejection.
Right.
Megan
Yeah.
has blood from patient X, which is his blood.
But was it his blood from when he was a newborn?
No, because when you find the report, it says that he's 32 years old. So it had to be 2 years before the events of the game. So the blood was drawn 2 years ago. Also, did I mention they're in a relationship?
Are they? There's so many things I want to say right now that are not family friendly.
That is like the laziest connections possible. Like it's like super. It's like
I'm with
it's
you
like,
on that.
It's like the chosen one, the savior, who's also the love interest, and stop.
It's essentially getting into classic 1990s soap opera territory because
I think part of it is
one character doing 5 jobs of the storytelling.
Right, but I think part of it is they want you to be able to play the game without having to pop neuroposin.
Yeah.
Which there is a game, which I don't know if we'll ever. Well, we may cover it at some point. Far Cry 2.
Right.
Takes place in a African country where you get malaria and you have to constantly be hunting down medicine.
You know, and that adds a nice bit of tension if you space it out right. It adds a good bit of tension within the gameplay. I can see that working out. It
also has one of the worst intro sequences ever in a game.
Is that the one when you're in a Jeep?
I like that part. What I don't like is you get malaria, you fall in the bed, and then you get monologued at by the antagonist.
Oh, yeah, that's bad.
Who sounds like he has to get through the dialogue before he can go to the bathroom.
Oh, so it's rapid.
It sounds so rapid, and his intonation is almost monotone at times.
I'm not going to imitate that. That's awful. That's just awful.
Anyway, that's where the first full game in the series chronology, Deus Ex Human Revolution, begins. There's a not very well received mobile game. I think it came to Windows that is earlier.
Okay.
But it just covers the events of people like a clandestine group who get involved in this main story, but it's not like the big thing, and it was just not well received.
Okay.
So it's one of those things that's a side game. It's not a main game.
Okay.
And I'm not going to delve into the game story past this point. We'll get to that another time. But you had mentioned about the U.S. There is an authoritarian and dystopian hellscape in many ways. Shocking for the genre, I know, right?
How could we ever expect our future to not be free? Oh, I know. Everything's gone authoritarian. Yay.
At some point, the Posse Comitatus Act was repealed in the U.S. This is a real act, by the way. This was signed in 1878 by President Hayes that put limits on the powers of the federal government to use the federal military personnel to enforce domestic policy in the U.S.
Okay, yeah, because states' rights. That makes sense.
So that was repealed.
Uh-huh.
So obviously you have the military is policing the streets.
Yeah, no, that's not... We already have that, technically, and it's not working out really well for us, guys.
FEMA camps also exist in secrecy to detain Americans suspected of anti-government sentiment. Secessionism and terrorism are also issues that are on the rise in the U.S. Do you see where this is all going?
We're going to be part of the revolution, guys.
There is also the Northwest states all try to secede, which looking at the Northwest states as a group, I can't see them all agreeing to secede.
Unless you had like a mass migration where basically all the people who love authoritarianism just went east and all the people who said forget your authoritarianism went west.
Yeah. In 2020, Australia discovered a large underground reserve of fossil fuels off the coast of Antarctica. By this time, fossil fuels are in very short supply. This is a slightly older game, but it's still accurate, I feel. Which led to conflicting interests between Northern Australians, which wish to provide oil for China and their own benefit, and parts of the South, which would form into the South Australian Federation and result in the Australian Civil War. A resource war that results in the Civil War.
No, I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
Oh, I'm leaving something out.
No.
I'm leaving a big thread out. So this is a universe where all those global conspiracies are real. The Illuminati, the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, Majestic 12, the Knights Templar, they're all interwoven in this giant web.
All of them. Not just one of I could get into like, okay, there is a small group called the Illuminati that controls certain things. I could get into that in a video game, even though there's no way that's real in real life because people forget how bad humans are at keeping secrets. So,
well, yeah, some of these things are real. Trilateral Commission, totally real thing.
No, I know.
Majestic 12 was a real research thing done in the 50s with aliens.
Okay.
Bilderberg Group is a real thing. The Illuminati, who knows? Possibly. But so like these are all real things. Darrow is in the Illuminati. His father, who started Pika's group, is in the Illuminati. Pika's group pushes all the stuff. They're the biggest conglomerate of media consumption. All their stuff is tailored to sway the populace in different directions based on the Illuminati's desires. Like, that is a huge part of Deus Ex, is that all these things are real.
Okay, I can understand one of them being real. Okay, you want to say the Illuminati is real?
They're all pushing and pulling. They actually do have, like, allies and enemies within this web, too.
But the thing is, again, as a writer, humans are really bad at keeping secrets. The idea that there's going to be 6 or 7 secret groups fighting to... No.
People know it's there. They just don't know to the extent. Does that make sense?
So what you're telling me, it's like the Nestle Corporation.
Most people would go with the CIA, but yeah.
No. I know the extent to where the CIA is. The CIA is everywhere. I already know that. You don't understand, though, sometimes how, as you said before, Johnson & Johnson.
Yeah. The thing that was maddening about this, so no one can see me, but I'm doing like that crazy guy from, what's that show?
Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay. Yeah. I'm making like motions like that, even though no one can see me.
Mystic's getting so excited, and I'm not here for this conspiratorial stuff right now.
I'm not excited. I don't care about conspiracy. I'm not excited. It's just I had to read all this stuff, and now I get to foist it on you.
Look, if you want to have a mini episode about David Icke's lizard people, we can do that.
We don't have a game about that.
We're like literally steps away from that. We literally basically 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from having David Icke dinos.
So, okay, and like every good conspiracy theory, things go wrong.
Of course.
And then the things that go wrong is all part of the new plan. That wasn't totally a mistake. That was whatever.
I'm so mad, guys. I'm so angry.
To read up on all this stuff is tiring.
Yeah, and I'm exhausted just hearing about it. I can't imagine researching it.
I'm not going to go through all of it. Basically, people do things for more power. Other people expose them. Plans go south. It's just all over the place. The world is a messy place.
Wait. Why do I suddenly want to go back to Just Cause, where the conflicts were just much more linear and straightforward? Oh, you're just an authoritarian jerkwad. Let's foist you out of power. Boing!
Well, don't forget but the problem is that the authoritarian jerkwad you're replacing is also being replaced by somebody who's more authoritarian because the agency is not the CIA. It's a separate whatever. Anyway, that's Just Cause. That was episodes 17 and 18.
Still less complicated than what you're describing to me right now in Deus Ex, okay?
To be fair, the amount of stuff I just tossed at you for Deus Ex is from 4 main games.
That's still too much in my opinion, but okay.
And I've just realized how much we've delved into like secret society and stuff, because Tex Murphy also had a bunch of secret societies in it.
Yeah, but that's a much more tongue-in-cheek kind of game.
Yeah.
So for me, it feels less...
That's true. Deus Ex is a little bit less tongue-in-cheek. It's a little bit more taken seriously.
A little bit. It's pretty serious, except for when it has one or two bad voice acting, casting issues.
Okay, so full disclosure, Safi has watched me play a little bit of Human Revolution, and there is one voice actor who plays a black woman that is just, why would you use that voice?
It's problematic. We're just going to say it's problematic. You can probably find a clip of it on YouTube. I'm not sharing it with anybody on YouTube. I'm just going to let you know.
You can go talk to her when you stream it.
No, I'm not going to talk to that stereotype that somebody got paid to portray. I'm so offended by it. It's just not worth
I totally forgot about that until you mentioned it.
I was traumatized. I was absolutely traumatized by that.
But also in the backdrop of all of this, you still have the same stuff that humans always do. Pro-Aug, anti-Aug, you know?
Right.
You still have the other is the problem.
Right.
And all these groups that are trying to foment change or whatever still can't fight against that. Their plans are ruined quite often by the fact that humans don't always like being pushed, even if it's subtly.
No, honestly, that's very true of human nature.
Yeah.
Entirely. That you'd rather have it be your own idea than somebody else's idea.
I do want to revisit this. I think that's about all I have right now.
That was far enough.
Because that was a lot that I just tossed at you.
Oh my gosh. I feel like a Jackson Pollock painting. I'm just splattered with like different hues of conspiracy theories right now.
Can I say I walked around our apartment trying to say polyethylene dioxythiophene for about a good 15 minutes. And the thing is, I didn't have to do that. The game never calls it that. The game only calls it P. clusters. But I'm like, what does that stand for? And now everybody knows. I
had to look up radioactive molecules for our Nuka-Cola episodes.
That's true.
So I'm not mad at you about it, because I was like, this isn't a real this is a real thing. What? Yeah, I've been there.
I was so happy to find out that P. clusters are actually used in real science for what the game shows it being used for.
That always is great about sci-fi, because it's written by people who are really interested in science most of the time. So you end up, or, other historical implication type things. So you end up getting really good predictions of stuff. So
next time that we are online, you'll be playing Human
Revolution. Okay.
Which will be in the new year.
Yay. Yeah.
New year.
Can I just say, for 2020, first of all, a lot of you are listening to this in 2021, because only our patrons are getting this before 2021.
Hi, Gondar.
Hi. So I just want to say that in spite of it all, I'm really glad for a few things this year, and the podcast was definitely one of them.
Our little buddy's another one.
Our little buddy's probably top of the list for me.
Who slept the whole episode.
We're so proud of him sleeping through the whole episode.
As we both look at him.
It's that point where, as a parent, you're like, okay, and you're not, I didn't just jinx it, did I? But I have to say, this podcast was one of them. So anytime you guys listen, we're very happy that people are into this stuff as much as we are. Mm-hmm. So Mystic can be flailing his arms about as he's talking about the craziness here and practicing.
But yeah, so definitely we'll be getting back into Deus Ex in the future.
Okay. Yeah.
There's a lot of series that we will have to get back to.
There seems to be a lot of philosophical stuff that we're going to have to touch next time we do Deus Ex, because we have to go to transhuman and posthumanism, as you mentioned. Mm-hmm. And
obviously,
I would be interested to see what certain characters would have to say about that.
So the funny thing is, I had played Deus Ex, and this was not my original choice for today.
Oh.
My original choice was a game that is no longer available to buy.
Whoa.
At all. It's been taken off all the digital markets because of some licensing issue with music.
Oh, no.
And I was going to cover that, but I felt it was getting too political because it's an espionage story. So and I was like, Deus Ex sounds good, and I had forgotten all the layers to Deus Ex in terms of politics.
All the very political layers.
Right.
To
I
Deus
was like,
Ex.
oh, right. Augmentation. That'll be cool. Transhumanism is cool. Totally forgot about all the conspiracy theories and everything.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And then it gets, so there's like this weird other underlay because Adam
Yeah.
is a cop before he's head of security, and he is head of SWAT. And there is a thing called I think it's called the Mexican Town Massacre or something.
Whoa.
Where
What?
where Adam is ordered to kill a augmented kid who's basically, there's like this murder spear massacre going on, and he refuses, and so he leaves the force, and one of his subordinates takes the shot.
That, you know what?
And it wrecks the guy. Like, you can actually like talk to this guy about how terrible he feels about this, how it wrecked him, and it basically foments riots and stuff.
Right. Yeah. That I hate to say it, Mystic, but that's a very familiar story that I've heard time and time again.
But we should still cover it.
Right. Uh-oh. Buddy, did you find your rattle toys, of course, right when we're recording?
Well, that's our cue to leave. Thank you guys for listening. We hope you have a great new year.
Yeah.
If you want to contact us on Twitter, @LoreTogether, on Instagram, @LoreTogether, LoreTogether@gmail.com. And if you want to support us, as well as our buddy here, patreon.com/LoreTogether, where you can get early access to episodes.
That's right, Mystic. Pedal the kid as well when you're asking for people to Patreon. Not that the kid does anything related to the podcast other than be adorable occasionally. So.
And if you are listening on a platform such as iTunes or Podchaser that allows reviews, please leave us a review. We would really appreciate that.
We would.
And pass us along to all of your friends.
Yes, thank you for listening. We always appreciate you listeners, and we will catch you at the next story.
That we shall.
Yeah. Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.